Welcome back, Morbidites. Today's curious, fulfilling video covers none other than the granny serial killer who strangled, poisoned, and buried her disabled and elderly lodgers. This is the story of Dorothea Helen Puente. She was born on January 9, 1929, as Dorothea Helen Gray in Redlands, California, to Trudy Mae Yates and Jesse James Gray. Her parents worked as cotton pickers. Her father died of tuberculosis when she was 8 years old in 1937. Her mother died in a motorcycle accident in 1938. She was sent to an orphanage until relatives from Fresno, California took her in. In later life, she lied about her childhood, saying that she was one of 3 children who all were born and raised in Mexico. Puente was married 4 times throughout her lifetime. The last marriage only lasted a few months, and Puente started to spend time in local bars looking for older men who were receiving benefits. She forged their signatures to steal their money, but she eventually was caught and charged with 34 counts of treasury fraud. While on probation, she continued to commit the same fraud. According to California Court of Appeal records, in 1981, Puente began renting an upstairs apartment at 1426 F Street in downtown Sacramento. The 9 murders with which she was charged in 1988, she was convicted in 1993 of 3, were associated with this upstairs apartment and not her previous 16-room boarding house. Puente's reputation in the boarding house was mixed. Some tenants resented her stinginess and complained that she refused to give them their mail or money. Others praised her for small acts of kindness or for her generous homemade meals. Puente's motives for killing tenants were financial, with police estimates of her ill-gotten income totaling more than $5,000 per month. The murders appear to have begun shortly after Puente began renting out space in the home at 1426 F Street. In April 1982, 61-year-old friend and business partner Ruth Monroe began living with Puente in her upstairs apartment, but soon died from an overdose of codeine and Tylenol. Puente told police that the woman was very depressed because her husband was terminally ill. They believed her and judged the incident a suicide. A few weeks later, the police were back after a 74-year-old pensioner named Malcolm McKenzie, one of 4 elderly people Puente was accused of drugging, accused Puente of drugging and stealing from him. She was convicted of 3 charges of theft on August 18, 1982, and sentenced to 5 years in jail, where she began corresponding with a 77-year-old retiree living in Oregon named Everson Gilmouth. A pen-pal friendship developed, and when Puente was released in 1985 after serving just 3 years of her sentence, he was waiting for her in a red 1980 Ford pickup. Their relationship developed quickly, and the couple was soon making wedding plans. They opened a joint bank account and paid $600 a month rent for the upstairs apartment at 1426 F Street in Sacramento. In November 1985, Puente hired handyman Ismael Flores to install some wood paneling in her apartment. For his labor and an additional $800, Puente gave him a red 1980 Ford pickup in good condition, which she stated belonged to her boyfriend in Los Angeles, who no longer needed it. She asked Flores to build a box 6 feet by 3 feet by 2 feet to store books and other items. She then asked Flores to transport the filled and nailed-shut box to a storage depot. Flores agreed, and Puente joined him. On the way, however, she told him to stop while they were on Garden Highway in Sutter County and dump the box on the riverbank in an unofficial household dumping site. Puente told him that the contents of the box were just junk. On January 1, 1986, a fisherman spotted the box sitting about 3 feet from the bank of the river and informed police. Investigators found a badly decomposed and unidentifiable body of an elderly man inside. Puente continued to collect Everson Gilmouth's pension and wrote letters to his family, explaining that the reason he had not contacted them was because he was ill. She maintained a room and board business, taking in 40 new tenants. Gilmouth's body remained unidentified for 3 years. Puente continued to accept elderly tenants and was popular with local social workers because she accepted tough cases, including drug addicts and abusive tenants. She collected tenants' monthly mail before they saw it and paid them stipends, pocketing the rest for expenses. During this period, parole agents went and visited Puente, who had been ordered to stay away from the elderly and refrain from handling government checks, a minimum of 15 times at the residence. No violations were ever noted. Suspicion was first aroused when neighbors noticed the odd activities of a homeless alcoholic known only as Chief, whom Puente stated she had adopted and made her personal handyman. Puente had Chief dig in the basement and cart soil and rubbish away in a wheelbarrow. At the time, the basement floor was covered with a concrete slab. Chief later took down a garage in the backyard and installed a fresh concrete slab there as well. Soon afterward, Chief disappeared. On November 11, 1988, police inquired after the disappearance of tenant Alvaro Montoya, a developmentally disabled schizophrenic whose social worker had reported him missing. After noticing disturbed soil on the property, they uncovered the body of tenant Leona Carpenter, 78. 7 bodies were eventually found, and Puente was charged with a total of 9 murders, convicted of 3 and sentenced to 2 life sentences. During the initial investigation, Puente was not immediately a suspect and was allowed to leave the property, ostensibly to buy a cup of coffee at a nearby hotel. Instead, after buying the coffee, she fled immediately to Los Angeles, where she befriended an elderly pensioner she met in a bar. The pensioner, however, recognized her from police reports on television and called the authorities. Her trial was moved to Monterey County, California, on a change of venue motion filed by her attorneys, Kevin Climo and Peter Vlaughton III. The trial began in October 1992 and ended a year later. The prosecutor, John O'Mara, was the homicide supervisor in the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. O'Mara called over 130 witnesses. He argued to the jury she had used sleeping pills to put her tenants to sleep, then suffocated them, and hired convicts to dig the holes in her yard. Climo concluded his closing argument by showing a picture commonly used in psychology that can be viewed in different ways and saying, "Keep in mind, things are not always as they seem." The jury deliberated over a month and found Puente guilty of 3 murders. They could not agree on the others. The penalty phase of the prosecution was highlighted by her prior convictions introduced by O'Mara. The defense called several witnesses that showed Puente had a generous and caring side to her and several other witnesses, including her long-lost daughter. They testified how Puente had helped them in their youth and guided them to successful careers. Mental health experts testified of Puente's abusive upbringing and how it motivated her to help the less fortunate. At the same time, they agreed she had an evil side brought on by the stress of caring for her down-and-out tenants. O'Mara's closing argument focused on Puente's acts of murder. Does anyone become responsible for their conduct in this world? These people were human beings. They had a right to live. They did not have a lot of possessions, no houses, no cars, only their social security checks and their lives. She took it all. Death is the only appropriate penalty. But to the end of her life, Dorothea Puente insisted that she was innocent, and that she had been taking good care of the people under her charge. Albeit suffocating, poisoning, and burying some along the way, Dorothea Puente died in prison of natural causes on March 27, 2011, at age 82. If you have made it to the end of the video, I thank you. Hopefully some of your morbid curiosity has been fulfilled today. If you enjoyed the video enough, could you please like, share, and subscribe for further morbid files?